Considering that the game today's video is about is called The Witcher 3, it's actually quite surprising how little we see witches in this game. Sure, we play as Geralt, we see Eskel, Lambert, Letho, Gaetan, Vesemir, Yod-Karadin, but other than these guys, we don't actually see any other witches in The Witcher 3. At least, witches as we currently know and recognize them. You know, with the yellow eyes, etc. However, there is one Witcher that I imagine a lot of you may not even have realised was once a Witcher. Some of you might not even know he existed, as you may have skipped the Catskool gear quests, or you simply might have not even bothered to read the journals and notes you find throughout the quest, as I know a lot of people like to skip that sort of thing and just listen to the dialogue and things. But anyway, this Witcher, or it might be more appropriate to call him creature at this point, is a Witcher who is driven mad and tortured beyond repair. He is known as the Mad Witcher Kiyan. Not much is actually known about this witch's origins prior to the story told to us with the various notes that can be found throughout Velen and Novigrad, but what we do know is that this witcher was not from the School of the Wolf, like most of the witches we encounter in this game. He was actually from the School of the Cat. For a little bit of basic backstory on the School of the Cat, just in relation to Kiyan, it is important to note that most, if not all of the other witcher schools, condemn this school because of this school's bad practices. These practices include taking contracts to assassinate people. Effectively, this school basically turned hired assassin, and that's not exactly respected amongst the Witcher community. There is a lot more to say on the School of the Cat. I actually made a video about them a while ago, however I am considering doing an updated version soon, as a lot of new info has been released since then. Anyway, moving back to Kiyan. Kiyan's story begins when he takes on a contract from Prince Adrian of the Sea Cats. The contract was for Kiyan to go with a professor known as Professor Glogger to go to the ruins of Est-Tear and recover a treasure from those ruins. However, Kiyan was supposed to not only recover this treasure, but also kill all of the other members of this expedition. He would then return to Prince Adrian with whatever they found and split the reward 50-50 with him. The expedition was sponsored by Prince Adrian, and I imagine he insisted that the Witcher went along on the expedition. In fact, it is mentioned that Kiyan was supposed to act as their protection in the ruins. Anyway, Professor Glogger actually wrote in his journal that Kiyan's presence worried him right from the start, and his suspicions were not ill-informed. From the 11th day of the expedition, Kiyan demanded that they turn over all the notes found in the Elven Armory of Est-Tear. The professor refused. 3 days later, Kiyan murdered one of the members of the expedition by slitting his throat, Marco, whilst Marco was deciphering one of the elven sketches they found. The professor then ran into one of the many portals found in these ruins and was deposited in a closed-off room. Sadly, the professor then starved to death in this room. However, he did still possess one of the Catskool gear's sword diagrams found in those ruins, which you can actually find. After the events in these ruins, Kiyan returned to Prince Adrian and they split the diagrams that had been found. Prince Adrian kept the silver sword diagram and Kiyan kept the crossbow diagram. It is actually mentioned that Kiyan brought the heads of all of the members of the expedition to Prince Adrian as proof, obviously except for the professors. Prince Adrian was very impressed with the effectiveness of this Catskool Witcher and then actually offered him a permanent job as his own personal bodyguard. Kiyan, however, refused this offer and Adrian wasn't exactly happy, but he let Kiyan leave regardless. After this brief adventure, Kiyan enlisted with a ship known as the Flying Stag, acting as a guard. It is at this point that a new key character enters the story, and this character is known as Irenaeus var Steingard. Irenaeus paid the captain of the Flying Stag a significant sum of Novigrad crowns in order to share a cabin with this Witcher, as he actually hoped to kidnap him. Irenaeus noted that Kiyan was very cautious, and it may actually prove to be slightly more difficult to kidnap him than was initially expected. Irenaeus actually eventually opted to use psionic spells on Kiyan as he thought it would be very difficult to just straight up poison him. Although he noted that Kiyan had a very high level of resistance to them, in fact it would take nearly an hour and a half to fully penetrate his nervous system, and that's just showing the vitality of witches. Eventually, the professor used magic to summon a storm, which gave him the opportunity to teleport himself and Kiyan into his secret base under Temple Isle, and this would be after Kiyan was basically sedated. After teleporting away, the Flying Stag crashed, and this was due to the summoned storm, and I believe all members of the crew probably died. For a little bit of backstory on Irenaeus, he was initially performing experiments on drowners. It's not directly stated why he did this, but I imagine it was just to test certain magical formulas and the effects that they have. Perhaps he was trying to make something similar to the secret Witcher mutagens, because that was something that Alzor did, and Alzor was like a very prominent figure in the magic community, and maybe he just wanted to rival that or something, and he was testing all these things on drowners to try and replicate that in some way. Anyway, after bringing Kiyan back to his laboratory, he began to perform all manner of horrific tortures on him, in the form of injecting various chemicals into Kiyan's body and just classic physical torture. On day 1 of the torture, the mage simply cleaned up his laboratory and also began to administer doses of milk of the poppy to Kiyan, which is basically a sedative, and also I suppose more of a painkiller too. For the next 2 to 4 days of the torture, Irenaeus learned that most of the witches of the School of the Cat are actually of elven stock, and he also learned that Kiyan was surprisingly resistant to physical torture. In fact, it took him almost 2 days of intense physical torment to break him. And yet again, this is just showing the vitality of witches. From day 5 to 7, Irenaeus administered bowbane and hemlock, which with the unmutated species like humans and non-humans would generally lead to paralysis of the peripheral nervous system and then eventually the nerve endings as well. Effectively, it eventually results in death through suffocation of your own body, so it's a pretty gruesome way to die. Kiyan, however, only experienced mild irritation, and this is due to his witchy mutations and the harmful aspects of the dosage he was given were neutralized. In fact, in a matter of hours, all of the symptoms of this poison vanished. And you gotta consider, guys, that the witcher potions that just normal witches have are incredibly toxic for people, as in, if a normal person were to even drink a bit of one, they would probably die. It is incredibly dangerous for normal people to drink these, and the fact that in The Witcher 3 you can just glug down 4 and still be okay to an extent does show you just how well the witches' bodies are at taking, I guess, what you would normally consider are harmful things into the body, and Kiyan just proves this further. Moving on to days 8 to 15, Irenaeus stung Kiyan with a sea wasp toxin, and all we are told is that it did not provoke the expected results. He then poured alcohol onto Kiyan's wounds to try and strengthen its effect, but yet again he was still immune. We then have a bit of a skip in the journal, and 11 days passed just about, so by day 26, which is the last day noted in Irenaeus' notebook, Irenaeus notes that Kiyan had been tortured, poisoned, burnt, frozen, starved, dehydrated, but despite all of these horrific physical and mental torments, Kiyan's body continued to function. Sadly though, Kiyan at that point simply wandered about his cell and was only able to articulate certain words, namely please, drink, don't hurt, and stop. It is later noted that Irenaeus trapped a demon in the body of Kiyan, and I suppose you could say at this point this witcher was truly killed. However, you could argue that if you decide to pursue the cat school diagrams in your own playthrough, you, as Geralt, can technically end this tortured creature's existence by killing him. Interestingly though, despite all of what Kiyan went through, when fighting what's left of him as Geralt, he's still able to use some Witcher signs, such as Quen, Igni, Ard, and he even managed to retain some of his Witcher fighting techniques. I mean, as sad as Kiyan's story is, guys, and it is a really sad one, I mean, I know he did some pretty bad things at the start, but obviously no one deserves what he went through. We did learn some very interesting things about Witchers, like they're incredibly resistant. I mean, I knew we already knew this, but to the point where they are completely invincible to just any form of disease. I mean, sure, it can slowly mutate their bodies and kill them, but they're still technically alive, which is just insane if you think about it. But anyway, that concludes the story of the Mad Witcher Kiyan. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I hope you've all learned something new. Learning about these little bits of lore I think is very, very interesting. I think it's so awesome how you get to meet this Witcher, because it shows a whole other aspect of the Witcher universe, right? I mean, we see sadistic things all the time, but the fact that we only see the aftermath, we don't see it as it's happening, is just so interesting. I mean, it's sad and horrible, but it makes the world just feel alive. Anyway guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you've all enjoyed. It's been a fun one to make. I've wanted to cover Kiyan for a while, and recently in my Witcher playthrough, I was doing the cat school diagrams, and then I thought, you know what, I'll come back with a cool lore video, and I'll discuss this awesome character. People have wanted this video for quite a while, so I hope I've delivered for you guys. But yeah, I plan to do some Cyberpunk videos soon. I've got a video planned for potentially this week, and it will be a Witcher video. It's not going to be a lore video, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I'll get that done this week, or it might be next week, we'll see. But yeah, guys, I'm back. I'm glad to be back. I've been able to stream way more on Twitch and all that. I've appreciated all of you guys checking me out on there. That's been so cool. And yeah, it's just been awesome, guys. But yeah, guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate you liking it. These videos take me a long time to make, and just liking it lets me know you enjoyed it, you want to see more, and it's really kind. So thank you to every single one of you that does that. Also, be sure to subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Discord, everything else, you guys know. And finally, as always, a big thank you to the Patreon pledges. Honestly, you guys are so amazing, and I just appreciate everything you do. I'm going to leave you guys with the Patreon pledges. Just look at all these awesome names, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. I am honestly so glad to be back, and just, yeah, I'm glad to make today's video. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next one, guys. Have an awesome rest of the week.